Summary of the Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism by Max Weber. According to Max Weber, there is a social stratification between Protestants and Catholics in every country with more than one Christian denomination, at least in Europe and America. This means that Protestants are more likely to be in charge of businesses and do skilled work, while Catholics often spend their whole lives as craftsmen. Weber agrees that some historical factors have led to this, but he says they are not enough to explain the distinct mental characteristics that separate Catholics and Protestants. Catholics don't like getting rich, but Protestants, especially Calvinists, seem to have the capitalist spirit in their blood. Weber says he is going to look at the different Protestant faith teachings to see how the Protestant ethic supports the capitalist spirit. Weber says that the capitalist spirit is the drive to keep working and getting richer, even when someone doesn't need the money. He says that capitalism and the capitalist spirit are not the same thing because the capitalist spirit can exist in economies that are not capitalist and people can live in capitalist economies who are not driven by making endless profits. Weber uses Benjamin Franklin's writings to show this ethic. In them, Franklin gives wise financial advice in a preachy way, as if he were giving a sermon, and he says that making money is a moral task. People who lived at the same time as Franklin thought what he said was wise, but Weber says that in the Middle Ages, people would have seen Franklin's moralistic love of money as the worst kind of greed. Weber compares the capitalist view that making money is a moral duty to traditionalism, which says that people should only work to make enough money to live on and not try to make a profit all the time. People who believe in capitalism live to work. People who are traditionalists work to make a living. To understand how work became the most important thing in life, Weber says we need to look at the Protestant idea of the calling. Martin Luther, a German monk who started the Protestant Reformation, came up with the idea of a person's calling, which is now used in all Protestant traditions. Catholics think that a person's job is at best morally neutral, and they show their devotion by living like a monk. Luther, on the other hand, didn't agree with this monastic practice because he thought it cut Christians off from the rest of society. Instead, Luther taught that a person's job is their calling and divine task because God put them there. This means that working hard is the best way for a new Protestant to serve God. Weber says that this idea started with Luther because there was no idea like it before him. Luther thought it came from the Bible. The Lutherans, who were Luther's straight descendants, were strongly against Calvinism. However, Weber says that the French theologian John Calvin took Luther's vague ideas about calling and made them into what they are today. Weber says that the view of destiny is the most important thing that Calvinism brought to Protestant thought. The teaching of this belief says that people can't be saved on their own. Instead, God, in His wisdom, picked a small group of people to save before the world was even made. They think that they can't change their own salvation and can only hope that they are one of God's elect, those who have been picked to be saved. Weber says that this makes Calvinists deeply insecure and gloomy about themselves because they can't be sure that they won't go to hell when they die. To fix this feeling of insecurity, Calvinists rely heavily on Luther's idea of calling. They say that a real Christian, who has been chosen by God to be saved, will show that they are divine by living a moral and academic life. According to Luther's idea of the calling, this means that they work hard at their non-religious job to show themselves that they are saved. Calvinists are so determined to live a good life that they avoid showing feeling and become logical and methodical in everything they do. This makes them great employees and business owners. Weber looks at German Pietism and Methodism as well, but he says that neither is as extreme in its rationality and logical consistency as Calvinism, nor are they as good at forcing their followers to live hard, virtuous lives with little room for personal pleasure. Weber says that the Baptist sects are a lot like Calvinism, but they believe that they can't be involved in politics or war. Instead, they only use their energy and desire in business, which supports the capitalist spirit in Protestantism. Weber says that Protestantism's new idea of asceticism is the last thing that fits with Luther's call. Catholics lived ascetic lives in the traditional monastery way by giving up their personal belongings. Protestantism, on the other hand, adopted Luther's rejection of all forms of monasticism. Instead, Protestants learned from the English Puritans led by Richard Baxter that wealth was okay but luxury was wrong. A Christian can make as much money as they want, in fact, they are morally required to, as long as their money doesn't lead to laziness or fake enjoyment of life. Protestant asceticism means always working at one's calling, while Catholic asceticism means living a quiet, meditative life. This idea is explained by Weber using the Pilgrim's Progress, a Puritan allegory about a man who seeks his own salvation at the expense of his family. This is seen as a noble rather than selfish goal. With this in mind, Weber says that the focus of Protestantism on individual salvation makes its followers even more capitalist and frees them from any moral concerns about getting rich. Weber says that this makes them less likely to enjoy life's pleasures, which is why Protestant culture became less colorful and rich than that of their ancestors. In this day and age, Weber agrees, faith doesn't have as much power as it used to. That being said, he is sure that Protestant ideology made the modern capitalist system what it is today, and that this means that everyone on earth is forever changed by Protestant ideas, whether they are religious or not.
About the author. Max Weber was born in 1864. Because his father was a civil servant, Weber grew up hearing a lot of deep talks about politics and social change. Weber started middle school in 1882 and finished as a junior lawyer that same year. Weber got his PhD in 1889 by writing an economic history of the Middle Ages. He quickly rose through the ranks and was soon teaching at the University of Berlin and working as an economist for the German government. Getting interested in politics and social issues, he joined the left-wing Evangelical Social Congress and spoke out against Polish immigration to Germany, which he thought was driven by bad ideas. Weber began his rise to fame as a social scientist when other researchers hired him to look into the business side of the migration. He married his cousin Mary Ann in 1893. Mary Ann was an author, activist, and feminist, and she put together and released a lot of Weber's work after he died. Weber's first book, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism, came out in 1904. It was the start of his research into religion as a major social force. Weber worked as a professor on his own until the First World War, when he offered to be an officer in the German army and was in charge of logistics for the hospitals. Weber later became one of the most active critics of German Empire, even though he had initially backed Germany's war effort. Weber died at the age of 56.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.